I need paper. Carl's a really good speaker. There's going to be the odd photo to complement my speech. Did anybody know those people are on there? Yeah. We recognise Ken Johnson, Howard Usher, and the front two. Is one of them Simon Close?
I think so.
We thought it was Tracy, but she says no. Anyway, I felt extremely honoured when Steve asked me to be his best man, and I'm thoroughly proud to be stood here today as his best man. I met Steve back in the early 1980s when I joined St John Ambulance, and so for much of the 1980s and early 90s we shared similar interests and slowly became best friends. St John Ambulance has had a massive influence on Steve's life, and like many of you, I was introduced to Steve because of St John Ambulance. Our first aid training sessions would take place once a week on a Thursday evening, I think. Steve would often be our teacher. Many evenings involved Steve tying one of us up and then encouraging the rest of us to tie each other up. I remembered those bondage sessions well. Oh, bandage sessions, sorry. But it was the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation technique that Steve seemed to enjoy teaching us the most. Funny though, only the girls were allowed to use the Resusci Annie. We had to make do with Resusci Steve! Still in the 80s, a lot of time was spent with his friends renovating an old St John Ambulance building at Grassington. Steve was in charge of this project. He worked his friends very hard. Bunk beds were built, showers were plumbed in, bunk beds collapsed, walls were erected and plastered, bunk beds were rebuilt. We did a really good job. It wasn't all work though. When he felt he'd worked us enough, we would go walking, crag hopping and caving. We had meals and drinks at the White Horse pub and Devonshire Hotel. Yes, Steve and his friends had a lot of enjoyment up at Grassington. I've been abroad with Steve on holiday twice. Each time has been a great experience. So we look young there. Do I look the same? The first one was New York, the Big Apple. We stood on the roof of one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center and we felt on top of the world. It was there that Steve thought it might be a good idea to drive down to Florida. So the next day we set off. Keeping the Atlantic Ocean to our left, we drove all day. We did, didn't we? I'm not making this up. We stopped and camped overnight. Next day, realising we hadn't got anywhere near Florida, we drove all day again back to New York. How were we supposed to know it was 1,235 miles? There were no sat-navs. But the next holiday with Steve was for the Premier Boys. Oh. Colin, give us a wave, Colin. Steve and myself. The Premier Boys entertained people of Selby from 1987 to 1990 with the world's greatest mobile discotheque, Premier Mobile Discotheque. Yes. So the boys flew to Mykonos, where Steve broke his foot on the very first day. Colin and I had told him not to chase the pool boy. He looked great on Super Paradise Nudist Speech, wearing just his plaster cast.